At this time, I'd like to call the meeting of the Plaquemines Parish Council as a sole governing body of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District meeting to order. The June 28th meeting to order at 1:08 p.m. The machine is open for roll call. I don't guess I'm working. I'll do a verbal present. I'm going to preside over the meeting today as the chairman of the council. I'll be sitting in the absence of the chair and the vice chair of the port. So let's stand for the prayer and pledge of allegiance, please.
We take this moment to acknowledge Almighty God and thank Him for our bountiful blessings, especially for these parish natural resources. We give thanks to God for our brave and courageous men and women in our military who daily risk their lives to protect our precious freedom, and we pray for our world leaders to know how to obtain world peace. We pray that this government body, comprised of both council and administration, will always serve our parish with honesty, humility, and equality to all, and for the wisdom to know right from wrong, and the courage to do that which is right. And as this government body gathers here today, we pray that we will be spared from all harm and destruction this hurricane season. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let the record reflect that council members Edgecombe, Lapine, and Burt are absent. Item 2, there's no executive session. We'll move to item 3.
Status report by the Executive Port Director.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the board. I am Sandy Sanders, Executive Director of Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District. Follows as my Executive Director's report for the reporting period of 25 May to 27 June 2018. During this reporting period, we had a visit with Lauren Brand, a MARAD Associate Administrator whose swim lane is in the Intermodal Systems Development. The PPHTD and the American Patriot Holdings briefed her on the Port Vision and Implementation Plan, and Ms. Brand provided feedback outlining the grants, federal funding, and low-interest loans that are available from the various federal government agencies the Port and APH could pursue regarding the port build-out, as well as the American Patriot vessels construction. She offered to personally escort us to these agencies at a coordinated time, convenient time for all. There are many steps necessary in the interim to ready ourselves for this very powerful introduction. During this time frame, I also accompanied the New Orleans Gulf Coast visit with members of the Union Pacific Railroad regarding the Port Short Line Railroad needs and the various handoffs from the UP to the NOGC and vice versa to continue the dialogue for the rail extension to the port site. This also had many discussions regarding the eventual rerouting of the service along the Harvey Canal and around the Naval Air Station. I met with Jerry Bologna with Jefferson Parish Economic Development, and this is a continual dialogue of the progress of port projects and regional economic development. This also goes hand in glove with the MARAD requirements as outlined by Lauren Brand. Lastly, I would like to thank our state rep, Mr. Chris Leopold, for his resolution regarding expediting the FERC process on behalf of our client, Venture Global. Madam Chairman, this concludes my report, subject to your questions or remarks.
Thank you. Is there any questions or comments from the table?
I just want to...
Mr. Russo?
Yes, you mentioned the bypass around the air base. Just for the port's information, today we are going to probably adopt an ordinance that will clear the title to 700 acres that we will now become the owner of, where the highway goes through the middle of it. And so I would like to put this on the port's radar for future development. We'll be glad to lease it to somebody, but we will clear the title of that acreage today. And I want to thank Mr. L.V. Which when he comes up and makes the presentation, that we will announce that soon.
That is certainly a great news story for our community.
Any other questions or comments from the table? From the audience? Hearing none, we'll move to item 2. There are no bids and advertisements. Bureau liquor licenses. Oh, I'm sorry. I am so sorry. Excuse me. No bids and advertisements. Do we have any introductions or resolutions? Mr. Bartholomew? Mr. Black? None. Mr. Russo? Ms. Alban? Oh, Mr. Russo.
It's in order to amend and as amended re-adopt ordinance number 15-138, which established the policy of Plaquemines Port Auburn Terminal District relative to the solicitation and receipt of proposals for professional service for the port prior to employment and otherwise to provide respect thereto.
Ms. Alban? No. None? Item 6B would be withdrawn, and item 6E will be deferred. Ms. Barber, can we move to item 6A, please?
A resolution authorizing the Plaquemines Parish Port Harbor Terminal District Executive Director Sandy Sanders to enter into a month-to-month lease with Fort Myer Farms, LLC.
I'll offer on behalf of Council Member Burt, who's absent. Is there a second? Seconded by Council Member Black. Would y'all like to elaborate on this?
There we go. Yes, this is a contract with Mr. Fort Myer, who would be leasing our property. It's simply just a housekeeping measure of codifying this agreement between the port and Mr. Fort Myer, as he provides, as we allow for him to lease the land, and he allows certain cattle to be on the property. In exchange, the services that he's providing as far as maintaining the property for us is in exchange for allowing him to lease the property. As a result, he's done a lot of great services for us, and I can have Mr. Donald explain that further. I would say that due to his maintenance, Venture Global has been very pleased with what he has done. As a matter of fact, I received the email this morning from them, very appreciative of a lot of the ditch cleaning that he's done and maintenance of the property, so that when they're prepared to develop, they know that everything's going to be straight, because Mr. Fort Myer has been very attentive of the area.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Bartholomew?
I'm very much concerned like this. I made the statement before. It could be an ethic violation, because we already employed this gentleman, and we no longer can give him access to property that he's already employed. So you can't have it both ways. Now, if you have an Attorney General's opinion, I'd like to see writing. I don't want to discuss it. If you got it in writing, I want to see it.
I have an opinion from...
I want to see it. You have it?
I have an
Do you
opinion.
have it in hand? If you don't have it, I don't want to discuss it.
Okay.
Till you have it in hand, so I can review it as well while you speak.
Okay.
All right? Thank you.
Any other questions you would like to speak?
My note, I'll vote no on that till we get this cleared up in writing.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the table?
Well, my only comments are, at the last meeting, it was deferred because we were waiting to see if you were going to have something in writing to say, for instance, got to cut it 1 time a year or 3 times a year or whatever you have to do. So you never reduced anything to writing, just a simple agreement that he can put the cattle on there and he'll pay us $20 a month.
Well, he is going to cut it in August, and he won't have to cut it again until the spring,
I know, but
believe.
my
And so-
question is did you reduce anything to writing to be able to say that at a minimum? That's the reason it was deferred at the last meeting. It was deferred because we said, well, do you have some type of an agreement to understand what is going on?
Right.
And
Well, the contract does say what specifically...
you have a contract?
Yes, the contract says specifically what he's going to maintain, and if you like, we can add in there that he cuts it at a minimum or a maximum. If you like, I can do that
No.
as well.
No,
But
well, before we go any further, it's not a matter of what I would like. it's a matter of what exists, and if you have a contract, then you should share it with us, because we haven't seen the contract.
Sure, that's fine. We can share it with you.
Well, that's why we
It's just-
deferred it, to see
What we're trying to do is codify something that's been going on for a while now to make sure that we have it on the books. And so I don't really remember a discussion between us having what to put on there, but now that we're here, what we're trying to do is codify something that has been around for a while. So we're hoping that if we can get to this vote, we can go ahead and put those measurements in and have that contract. I don't understand if this is something that has been simple housekeeping, that we can just move forward on the vote. I know he's been doing a lot of work for us. He's been working with VG in this process with us. So I think for us, it's just to make it secure that he's maintaining the property, we have it codified, and we just move forward with an agreement.
So I guess the question is, we'd like to see the codification, and we will approve it. But you haven't provided us with the contract, and that's the reason it hadn't moved so far. Until you give us something that you're trying to codify, it's like doing it before we vote on it would be the option, would be the proper way to go, is my opinion. So, you know, I'm committed to having this happen. I don't have a problem with Mr. Fort Meyer and cutting the grass and whatever he's going to do. But if you got a contract, then usually it's attached to the legislation that approves the contract. It's not something that, you know, you do and then you see a contract later. If you're asking for us to vote, me personally, to vote on something, I'd like to know what I'm voting on.
Mr. Bartholomew?
Okay?
Yeah, my other concern is that the land is being utilized as port property, and you're giving one person access about using it for cattle services, to put cattle on it. Now, I'm very much concerned about that being a part of a violation when you have it not open to the public to pursue the same opportunity to participate with that as well, because you're isolating it just to one individual only. So it hasn't ran out to the public to do that. So that's another concern.
Well, to be clear on that, based on the statutes that govern the port, Title 34, Section 1351 to 1365 allows the port to lease property without having to bid. It's just a lease agreement that you go in with an individual or company, and the port votes on an agreement. So I checked with our counsel if there's any legal or ethical issues with doing so, and our counsel has come back, no.
So they had Attorney General's opinion?
I do not have Attorney General's opinions.
So they haven't sent to us, I haven't seen the statute which you just quoted, or haven't seen that in the presentation to support that this document, the legislation you're trying to get passed. So what I recommend in the future is anything in question, whenever you were quoting legislative acts, I would ask that you put that into the process so that we won't have a lengthy discussion on it. Because at that point, when we receive it, I know when I receive it, I can go check into the background of it and see if it is any other options that we need to look at to being in violation. If not, no problem.
10-4.
So at the next meeting, would you provide us with a contract and we can move forward?
I
with
will.
this?
With that being said, I'm
Thank
going to defer this item.
Before you defer,
Yes, ma'am.
okay, in addition to the concerns that my colleagues have, for clarity, I just would like to know, does this gentleman live on site?
No.
He doesn't live on site? Okay,
There is no residence or any places to stay on the property. This
Okay.
is bare property. No sheds, barns, anything.
okay.
Item will be deferred.
6C, an ordinance authorizing the executive director of the port, Maynard J. Sandy Sanders, to enter into and execute a contract with the Chesapeake Group, LLC, lobbyists for a period of 1 year beginning July 1, 2018, and terminating on June 30, 2019, to represent the Plaquemines Port, Harbor, and Terminal District in any upcoming sessions of the Louisiana State Legislature or any other meetings, etc., deemed necessary to protect its interests in all matters and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
I'll offer on behalf of Councilmember Burt.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Roussel. This is for the Chesapeake Group, who's been representing the port for quite some time now. They do a great job. In the contract is for a term of 1 year, not to exceed $40,000. Any questions or comments from the table? From the audience? Hearing none, the machine is open. Verbal yes. For me. My machine don't want to work. She cleared it, y'all.
You ready to do it? Revote?
No, I'll do a verbal yes. I don't. Legislation passes 6-0. Next item, please.
A resolution authorizing the Port Executive Director Maynard J. Sanders for and on behalf of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District to name and accept a proposal of the Plaquemines Gazette as the official journal for the Plaquemines Parish Council as the sole governing authority of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
I'll offer on behalf of Councilmember Byrd as read. Can I get a second? Seconded by Mr. Juneau. Any questions or comments from the table? From the audience? Hearing none, the machine is open. I'll do a verbal yes.
Is it your battery that might be dead?
I don't know. Legislation passes 6-0.
Under new business, there are no introductions of resolutions wherein a suspension is being sought. Number 8, approval of the May 24, 2018 minutes.
I'll offer. Can I get a
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Badalamy. Machine is open. I'll verbally vote yes. Approval of the minutes 6-0. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Badalamy. Machine is open. Verbal yes to adjourn. Meeting is adjourned at 1:25 p.m.
I'd like to call the meeting of the Plaquemines Parish Council, June 28, 2018 meeting to order at 1:29 p.m. We have no executive session. Oh, I'm sorry, we'll do roll call. Machine is open. Still up. Yep. Let the record reflect 6 council members are present. Council members Byrd, Edgecombe, and Lapine are absent. We have no executive session or proclamations. We'll move to item 1C. Status report by the parish president. President Cormier.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you, Chairwoman Williams. This is for the record, President Amos Cormier's status report from June 14th to June 28th. Well, first, let me get straight to it. We issued a press release today in response to a CPRA press release. On June 24th, 2018, I did an interview on WDSU TV on the hot seat regarding hurricane issues in Plaquemines. And I did that interview because I wanted to get the concerns of the people of Plaquemines and also scientific evidence and discuss that evidence openly and have that opportunity to speak on that evidence. The link was put up on our website. If you go to plaquemisparish.com, under news, there's a sub-tab called Coastal News, and you can find more information there. We will continually be posting there. Instead of addressing, well, let me back up. CPRA had a meeting on June 20th, 2018. On June 19th, I called up Chairman Bradbury as soon as I got the agenda, at which they stated they were voting on whether or not to bring litigation against Plaquemines. I called up, immediately requested an opportunity to be put on the agenda and to address this topic. I was denied that opportunity. Myself, Coastal Director, Mr. Frelish, Mr. Ken Savastano, Mr. Spears, and we also saw numerous other people up there, such as Captain George Ricks, at the meeting. We attended that meeting. At that meeting, Brad Barth gave a talk about the diversions. At the end of that talk, I requested an opportunity to speak on the diversions, and the chairman denied that opportunity to speak on the diversions. The next matter that was brought up was the attorney, Mr. Peterson, got up and began speaking about the executive session. I attempted a second time to speak and made my way to the table. After getting an introduction in, the second I began to try to speak about the concerns and the science on this project, the chairman gavelled me down and refused to allow me to speak any further. Now, CPRA is clearly playing a fake news game of what the term "to speak" means when they issued a press release stating that I was given an opportunity to speak. Anyone who sees the WDSU hot seat interview knows that the context of that: speak on the substantive topics, speak on the science, speak on the flood concerns of Plaquemines, speak on the levee risk concerns of Plaquemines, and also speak on the water elevation rises on our back levees, which we have spent so much of our money spending recently and will continue to do so. The WDSU article interview speaks for itself. I stand by that interview and note that if people are going to play games with semantics, that such as putting changing terms such as freshwater diversions to sediment diversions that has no logical input other than to try to put political spin out, then that's going to make things difficult for all. And it's not very conducive to a so-called expressed desire to negotiate, because we were in the audience when the board came out of the executive session and spoke about their desire to negotiate while we're sitting right there in the room, in the audience, and we're not allowed an opportunity to speak substantively about these issues. We had conducted, on June 19th, we had some ghost-up visits in the parish. We also had an emergency preparedness parish hurricane workshop, and many people attended. We had a lot of collaboration. It was organized by Director Harvey, our emergency preparedness team. The United States Army Corps of Engineers spoke, and Entergy spoke, and other departments also spoke, and it was very enlightening for all. On June 22nd, had a meeting with all area parish presidents, including Mayor Cantrell, Parish President Yini, Parish President Guy McGinnis, Parish President Cochran, Parish President Natalie Robotham, and several others in attendance, at which we discussed regional issues regarding hurricane, regarding local autonomy, and also the opioid epidemic and litigation, as well as some of the coastal litigation. It was a great opportunity to share with other parish presidents, because we face many of the same problems and issues. On Saturday, June 23rd, our thoughts and prayers go out to one of our own, Miss Angie Galmiche lost a father, and our condolences to her family, the Galmiche family. On Monday, June 25th, Councilwoman Savant called a meeting at Grand Bayou to discuss the Grand Bayou bulkheads. Very good meeting, and we delivered some plans to Grand Bayou Center, and those plans were left there for the community to review at their pleasure. The contractor for this award had the contract on Monday, and they're going through the review, and we're planning on moving forward with that. There are one or two good suggestions by the community that we will review. Mr. Dugas and engineering will review. On Tuesday, June 26th, we had the Project Advisory Committee meeting to replace the Belchase Bridge and Tunnel. Numerous council members were in attendance. Councilman Black, I think Councilman Juneau, Councilman Roussel, and I'll paraphrase, but I'll let the council members talk more about it. I don't pretend to speak for them, talk more about this later, but my take from it was that I don't think there's a tremendous amount of concern or disagreement so much with the engineering side, and that was the principal thrust of the meeting. I think the issue is going to be one of financial and who's going to pay for it, because, and unfortunately, DOTD has two different groups working on this. They have an environmental engineering side, and then they have another group working on the so-called novel P3 financing mechanism, which is new to the state of Louisiana. And we were informed that currently there's a shortfall of $52 million that's going to have to be, someone's going to have to come up with to pay for this bridge, replacement of the Belchase Bridge and Tunnel. But I'll let the council members speak more on that. I don't know if they want to do that now or...
You can conclude your address and then they can comment.
On Wednesday, June 27th, I want to thank Councilmembers Roussel, Trufant, Juneau, and Bartholomew for attending the pre-council meeting. It's always good to have those meetings to go through the agenda and have a chance to talk ahead of time, as it makes for a more efficient meeting. We also had the Environmental Advisory Committee meeting. I want to thank Councilman Trufant for attending that. In the afternoon, we had members from GOSEP, from the State Director of FEMA, Mr. Loscombe, and there we discussed in great detail. We have, I think, a total of 94 PWs left from Hurricane Katrina. The Director of FEMA for the state wants us to complete, get a total of 81 projects in before 29 of August. I think we have 50 projects in, so we need to work on 31 more projects, and we have our contractors working on that. The biggest issue there is that these are monies that the parish already expended. It's listed under our accounts receivable, and so my message to GOSEP, because there are, let's just call them things that need to be ironed out between GOSEP and FEMA, my message was simply, please, on the highly technical details of whether or not resident inspections falls within a PM contract or not, please release the money to us that's owed to us as quickly as possible. I have good news to report. The Louisiana Office of Community Development audited 4 of our HUD, Housing and Urban Development projects, and we passed. Port Temple Library, construction, the Plaquemines Parish Library, their construction continues. I spoke about the Grand Bayou dock. Bow Brothers is doing a great job on Lake Hermitage Road. Construction is, the blacktop is, on one side is completed, the other side they're moving at an incredibly rapid pace. It's really a great improvement for the community at Lake Hermitage. On the Belchase Quad and Pavilion, it's my understanding that the engineer who was handling this for years, Bergdahl and Graves, withdrew. And we're going to have one talk with Councilmember Black about trying to get another engineer group to take their place to get that project moving forward, or we'll continue those talks to try to move that forward. two last things. First of all, I want to introduce Miss Patty McCarty. Given that we don't have an economic development team in Plaquemines now, Ms. McCarty has volunteered, and we thank her. That's tremendous sense of civic duty to help out. And I'll just go ahead, Ms. McCarty, I think you have tried to gather some data or something.
To just introduce myself. Some people may know my father, Charles McCarty, who volunteered for 8 years to be economic developer. So this is not unprecedented that someone volunteers for this position. I'm hoping that this introduction will allow me to seek a spirit of cooperation among different departments within the parish. And recently, I had to write a paper which I sent all of you, which was an overview of the parish, and ran into some obstacles there in compiling the paper, but I wanted to ask all of you, I'm going to revamp it again. If you still have a copy, or if you would like me to send out a copy again, if you see anything that you would like to change, this paper is signed by the governor and is sent to new businesses that are coming to the 9 parish region. And Gino Inc. was the person, the organization that initiated this paper to be commissioned. Also, although my initial goals were to only seek grants so that we could develop some documentaries and a commercial that would introduce the parish to new business, sort of a leader, so that when somebody's looking to place a company in a parish, they would be able to see something up front before contacting us that would kind of draw them in to the parish. I'm also trying to register land in a database that Louisiana Economic Development is compiling, and Entergy is the company which has developed the software for this registration. And basically all you have to do is take the land, register on an Entergy database, and draw a square or triangle, however the land is shaped, for you to register that land for commercial development. Recently we had a company, Project Valley, that was seeking 40 acres, and we missed that opportunity. So, Mr. Russo, I don't know if the land that you have would be appropriate for going into this database, but it's for commercial development. And if anybody would like to contact me, they can contact me at econ@ppgov.net. And that's it. I thank you for the opportunity to introduce myself.
Thank you, Ms. McCarty.
Ms. McCarty, Mr. Russo has a question for you.
Couple of questions. Thank you for your service and your willingness to volunteer.
Thank you.
My first question is, will you reactivate the Volunteer Economic Development Board?
If you would like us to, that would be great. I think that would be a good opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, it's
for cooperation.
Defunct right now, it's not meeting, so, I mean, I know you're one person, but there is a volunteer board that sits there that could be activated and it could possibly help you. The second question I have is that is compiling the land in a system. We have a GIS department that is responsible for that.
Okay.
And I'm not sure what they're doing, but that is an asset that we fund and we pay for that could possibly be utilized to help gather this database. The property that we are going to try to clear the title on in a little while definitely is going to be something that I'm sure the government would like to see developed. And it's
that's wonderful.
It's on both sides of the existing Peters Road corridor, the extension project, but those two questions I think would be helpful to you if you could get the GIS supported and start inputting all of these parcels of land for development.
That would be terrific, because I've been trying to figure out who to go to get the land off Walker Road put into this database. I don't want to interfere with the land that the port has set aside, but yet if a company comes in that might be appropriate, like this Project Valley, which is a food processing plant that wanted a building on 40 acres, that's a huge building.
Well, let me say that I don't want to bog you down with work since you're volunteering, but the effort that is made by the port and this council are all one and the same. So if you can build a database that the economic development at the state level would be happy with to be able to market properties for us, I think you should include all parish-owned properties as well as private-owned properties that are up for development. So with the GIS department, if you can motivate them and get them to work, I'd be happy.
Thank you.
Mr. McCarthy, I'd like to thank you. You're going to be a great help. Your dad was a great help, and I know you will. And if we can be of any assist, please let us know.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy. And finally, I'd like to, I'll be introducing a copy of the United States Army Corps of Engineers Perspective on Mississippi River Diversions by Brigadier General Duke DeLuca, who was commander of the Mississippi Valley Division, President Designee, Mississippi River Commission, January 2014. And in this is yet another study by the Corps, which they cite a study by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration of the United States in its position paper entitled Mississippi River Freshwater Diversions in Southern Louisiana, Effects on Wetland Vegetation, Soils, and Elevation. And I quote, "A general conclusion on the expected short-term and long-term responses of marsh below-ground production to freshwater diversions in Louisiana could not be drawn from the available evidence." That's on page 25. We'll try to get this up on the website as well. But even more startling is one of the maps in the back speaks to water surface elevation in feet. And it simulates approximately 10 years of diversion operation. And most of this map is green, and the green area covers from 4.9 feet of water elevation down to about 2.8 feet. That's going to mean more water on our back levees. And we all know that water standing on levees causes problems. And with that, I'd like to introduce Miss Rosina Philippe, because she represents, that could also exacerbate the harm to the Indian mounds in Grand Bayou, where there are 1,000-year artifacts there, and this water elevation could cause a loss of that national heritage.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cormier, Ms. Trufant, council members, for having me here today and giving me the ability to share a perspective and some knowledge with you about this proposed project for the diversion. Grand Bayou Village, we have been in this region for centuries, so my knowledge base comes from long-time occupancy in this region. As President Cormier stated, we do have our mounds as the original site of our community, and to us they were sacred formations, and there were 12, which is an unusual configuration for the mounds complex system, and as such they have suffered the ravages of time, but they are still in existence after all of these centuries. And we have been very protective of these formations for many years, but outside world being what it is, they have found their way to science, archaeologists, whatever. So there is some reports on their existence. However, with this proposed project and the amount of water that we perceive to be introduced into this region, we see an accelerated timeline where the destruction of these formations will face. And we're wanting to know that in proposing this project, what has the Corps or the CPRA, what have they designated for this area, and have they even considered any type of protection? And we believe that in doing an environmental impact study, that needs to be taken into consideration, because Louisiana has always prided itself on, the culture and heritage of its people, and being, from the first peoples of this state. And being here in Plaquemines Parish, I believe that we have something to say about the processes that will destroy our culture and our heritage and the remnants of that ancient place. So that's something for consideration for this board as you go forward in your deliberations in dealing with these entities and trying to decide the best way to proceed with this project, if it proceeds at all. We perceive that this project at best is experimental, and that it's a look and see what will happen. Our knowledge comes from people that have been in place in this region for a very long time. We live in this region. We don't just, there are many user groups that take, that make use of this region. But our survival, our culture, everything, our everyday life, we're dependent on this because we have been here. We're a subsistent user group for this region in the Barataria area, along with some of the other coastal tribes. One thing that we have observed in past projects that have been introduced into this region where the environment was manipulated, because we, understand the need for some protections or whatever, depending on the amount of development you have in the region, the levees, etc. We know how that has impacted the region, and we are on the outside of the levee, but still we advocate for preserving what can be preserved, and acknowledging that, people have a right to their lifeways, and these lifeways as citizens of not only the parish but the state of these United States, we have a right to have these lifeways protected and respected. And in saying that, our observations from past projects is that, when fresh water is introduced into a saltwater region, there will be a shock and awe, period. And the vegetative life and marine life will be significantly impacted in that time. And it will take some time for that vegetation to recover. And we estimate at best a decade or more for recovery. Because when the fresh water comes in, there will be a weakening of these vegetative systems. And then, I say then if, but it's more probably when, a negative, like a storm system, will come into the region, and if it hits that weakened system, then it will be even longer for that system to recover. And there goes your root mass that holds your sediment, and there will be a washing away. Now, we understand, we're looking at the project that they are predicting sediment fallout, whatever, and we just don't see that happening in the way that the project is designed. And as a resident of this parish, I would ask that you look at the project, how it is designed before it's implemented into this region, and see where it can be tweaked, for want of a better word, in order to benefit all of the people and the lifeways in this user group, area. So, with that, that's all I have to say now. I thank you, and I hope to, in your deliberations, see some of these questions or comments that I've made come up in your deliberations with the Corps and the CPRA. Thank you for your time and your knowledge, ma'am. I really appreciate it. Mr. Russo?
Any questions? Yes, ma'am. Thank you for your lifelong knowledge of the area and expressing it here today. I guess one question is that you mentioned the EIS.
Yes.
Have you participated or submitted any concerns to the process?
Yes, we have. We work with the other tribes in the coastal region, and we attend, we don't all attend at one time, but we have our group, First Peoples Conservation Council. We're 6 tribes that have gathered together and formed this council, and as available, we attend the various meetings, and we have, made input because we all live in the Barataria region except for one tribe.
And so the EIS is incorporating your concerns in the evaluation of the project as we speak.
Yes, it is. Well, we feel that their projections are not far enough into the future. So we feel that, further along that the negative impacts will manifest, and it falls outside of their projected time when things will happen. So because we will be living with this project, and we want to make sure that, whatever is implemented in this area will be beneficial to everyone, and that we want good things for this parish. We want good things for the people of this parish and for the lifeways of this parish, and also, what's living here with us. It's not just people, there are plants and animals and everything that makes this system and this environment conducive to not only our lively ways and our livelihood, but people who visit us, take advantage of this and enjoy this. So we want to make sure that when looking at this project, it's not fast-tracked, it's not people closing their minds and hardening their hearts, in service of politics and profit. We want something for this parish that will be beneficial to this parish long-term, not just a short-term implementation, seeing what happens in a gamble, and then the people of this parish are left with trying to find an alternative to try to fix something that destroyed, what we have come to appreciate and value. So that's...
So since you participated in the first leg of the process, the draft will be out. Will you be prepared to address the draft and any concerns that are not addressed in your previous comments, add them to the draft when you have the second opportunity to input?
Yes, we will, and we are still working together and with scientists and engineers both, getting that feedback and looking at the project and the process as it moves forward.
Well, I compliment you for participating because it is a process.
Yes, it is.
And until the process runs its course, we don't really know the answers or how it will be dealt with. So I encourage you to continue to stay focused and encourage anyone else to input into the process and not, avoid the process, because at the end of the day, the questions have to be answered.
Yes, it does. And we're concerned about, the water tables, about the amount of water coming onto the land. We're outside the levee. We existed a long time before the levees were put into place. And we get, we see the first water that comes to the region, especially in a negative event, like a storm event. So we are concerned about, especially at 75,000 CFS, we are concerned about that much water coming into the region and how much higher that water table and what it will mean for our people in the village itself. So all of these concerns I put before you to take into consideration when you're making your deliberations and when you're having these conversations. We're all about collaboration and cooperation, but we want to make sure that all user groups are represented, when you're doing these considerations. So I thank you very much. Anyone else has any questions?
Comments from anyone else? Ms. Alvan?
Yes, Ms. Philippi, I too want to commend you and thank you for being engaged and standing up for your people, the folks of Grand Bayou. And the more we discuss and have conversations surrounding the diversion, as many of you all know, the diversion is the elephant in the room lately, and most people is trying to avoid, but it is a reality. And until we met on this week, I had no knowledge of Indian mounds being so close and being a part of our landscape. So, and I think if everybody would just be a little bit more receptive of each and every one next door as neighbors, and be respectful of different cultures, they would understand how important it is to stand up for what they believe in. And I commend you wholeheartedly for taking the position that you have. And again, as Reverend Edwards said on last council meeting, I support you and I stand with you because of the fact that I take exception to outsiders feel that they are deserving or have the right to come into our parish and dictate on what we should be comfortable with, and they're not going to be impacted negatively by the project. So again, I commend you and I support you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Godolphin?
There's always a question.
Yes.
Proof, scientific proof.
Yes.
You have proof. The history is proof, the people is proof. It has been in existence before a whole lot of folks came.
Yes.
And it's still there. So that meaning it survived. So you have all the data is needed to testify to the fact that it works.
If they do it in the right way.
Yes.
So it is very valuable. So don't think it's that, because it is very valuable. I
Thank you.
appreciate your efforts of mandating that y'all be heard, that the
Thank you very
Indians be
much.
heard.
Thank you, members of the council. Mr.
Thank you.
President. Thank you.
Mr. Cormier? You're done? Any questions or comments for the President's address from the table? Mr. Lawrence?
Yes, Warren Lawrence, 120 Timber Canal Lane, Maple Grove. And I just have to make a comment as part of the homeowners association. We have followed this process on the diversion, and we've met with the CPRA 3 times already. We understand it's a process, but recently I've seen the Corps of Engineers evaluation on what it would do to our neighborhood. 4 foot of water with that thing open, your streets, your pumping stations, sewer stations will all be underwater in our subdivision. Anytime it's operating, it will not be available to drive in our subdivision. Now, this is a report that came from the Corps of Engineers that I can't get from CPRA. What is the hydraulic study when this is running and what effect it's going to have on our subdivision? We understand, and I believe we have to respect and guard those mounds and everything. But the closest subdivision to the outlet of this diversion is the Myrtle Grove Marina. This is going to be a detrimental effect to us. We have made our objections, not even objections, questions to the CPRA to give us that study to say what is the impact it's going to have not only on my home, but on your streets, your property that you are responsible for in that flood zone. And, you know, I'll gladly work with anyone, you know, and we will be contacting Ms. Audrey. Maybe we can get a meeting back with the Corps of Engineers and CPRA together. I mean, if you're getting one answer from CPRA, which is nothing, they don't know what the effect, they haven't done the hydraulic study, and then today I hear that the Corps of Engineers, Mr. DeLuca, whatever his name is, which I'll get a copy of, has already studied what this amount of water is going to do. We're in that green, and I don't know if that's at a normal tide. What happens if that same 4 foot rises over already 3 foot high tide? Our 4 foot is the point where we flood the streets. Right now, if you drove out there today, there's a 2 foot margin. If we had that operating today, I couldn't drive to my home. And this is what we're asking. If we follow in the process, Mr. Russo, we've made our objections known, and objections being we question. We want to know hydraulically, is it going to affect us or not?
Mr. Lawrence, I might suggest that you continue the process and might offer a solution, like put that gate in you've been trying to get for many years.
And again, we could talk about the gate. The gate's not the answer, I guess, because if the gate's open, you know, I'm sure the water's going to come through the gate and flood us, but neither be the case. We're looking, if they're going to cause a problem, what is the solution? Because, you know, again, we'd love to have the gate. That would help us against hurricanes. Now we added on the hurricanes and south winds. Now we add another elephant in the room, that's going to send water from the Mississippi River at a rate that a lot of small hurricanes don't do to us. So,
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. Mr. Edwards?
Thank you, Mr. President, for all you're doing this morning. You know we have exhibit at Phoenix High School on waterways. It's a project of the Smithsonian Institute that Darrell Lynn Turner Design Travel Cooperative Center brought to Plaquemine Parish, and it's a very historical event. But the kids are doing a project around a diversion and waterway. And this morning when I slipped in, one of the parents asked me, she said, you know, I've been looking at the diversion stuff, and I see where the parish president is taking on CPR. She said, but why the whole council? Why he's the only one out there front? So that's what I'm putting before you. The public, you know, I don't want to say just Mr. Cormier out there on this issue, but seeing a united front from this whole council on the diversion project, because as the fishermen came on last week told you, and those of us who've been doing this for 20, 15 years, been going back and forth to D.C., understand the importance of this. But I think the council, not all the council members, some of y'all are too silent, and I think it's time now either let the public know what side you're really on, because the parent asked me that, and I said, well, I can't tell you. I heard at the last council meeting, some people say they see the light now, but I don't know what that means, and I shared my comments about Councilwoman Salvan saying she's supposed. So I just think this is something, CPR, you know, is not Goliath, you know, and if it is, we got to have some more David that willing to come forward, because regardless to the economics of they're telling you, this will harm our unborn future generation. If any move that you need to be upfront on a series of is this divergent impact. It is a sad day on the east bank of the river when you go to that marina, when you think about all these fishermen now who made a living, that place is closed down because of what the fresh water is doing. So I hope this council really understand the passion that people saying with this, because people are hurt. People can be dying as a result of not having economic gain. So I hope that, Mr. Cormier, you're not the only face in Baton Rouge where people see that the whole parish council is coming out on behalf of the citizens of Plaquemine Parish. Again, we want to applaud you on that effort. We know it's hard when you know you're going against the power that be, but we telling you stay encouraged. You know, we with you no matter what happened. The citizens of Plaquemine Parish appreciate your effort, and even if you got to do it by yourself, don't get discouraged. We're looking forward to you, because that's what you, we don't agree on a lot of things, but I'm 100% behind you on this issue.
Mr. Bartholomew?
Yes. Reverend Edwards commented that, well, been on this thing since 15, when it first came in as a council member, and not supporting the CPR with diversion. And I'm still in that mode, because what happened when we destroyed the east side with that diversion through Mardi Gras Pass and Fort St. Philip and everywhere else down there, the fresh water's coming in, and also the Carnarvon project that eliminated the natural resources that we have. Totally against it on Barataria Basin, because what an impact that it had on the East Bank. So I noticed the devastation it takes on the west side. So I know my colleagues, but I am totally against it. And I think it can be beneficial if they redesign the concept. Have less water, more settlement. I think it can work to that effect. But not with just the water flow where you can destroy all the vegetation. You can even lose land eventually, because there's nothing to hold the vegetation in place. If fresh water and salt water mixes, the vegetation is dead. And the only vegetation that is deep rooted is salt water. Fresh water is not deep rooted. Only salt water is deep rooted vegetation. That's the only thing. So just let everybody know that CPRA knows it, because I've been to several meetings and told it to them. And say every chance I get, Badberry, met him up there in Badberry, told him the same thing. He said, I don't know what I'm talking about. He said, I'm from Grand Isle. Oh, you know I'm not. I said, how you Grand Isle? You live in Grand Isle, but you're not from Grand Isle. But anyway.
Mr. Rossell?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a point, Rev. No matter what individual council members feel about the project one way or the other, Mr. Cormier is standing on an ordinance by this government.
Yes.
So it's not a matter of Mr. Cormier out there leading the train by himself. He's standing on the backs of every member of this council, because you haven't seen one member of this council come back yet and try to rescind the ordinance. And I'm not saying that won't happen one day. So as far as a united front at this point in the game, that's where we're at, because we get the letters about suing us as the levy board. I don't know what he gets, but when he gets in the pitch, he raises the ordinance and say, this is why we can't do it. Now, if the ordinance went away, I don't know what his position would be. It'd probably be the same. But to sit there and you know, not recognize where the whole government is on this issue, I think should be cleared.
Mr. Wright? Hold on one second. Ms.
I don't
Alvan?
want to be contrary, Mr. Roussel, but I still think that it should be, it would not be harmful. It would be more helpful than anything if each individual council member would publicly state their position. And I'm not saying that you're mandatory or you're obligated to it. And I'm not sure with the upcoming election that any council member would take the chance of rescinding that ordinance.
I'll take my chance right now, Ms. Alvin. Let me answer the question where I stand. Personally, I think that the environmental impact statement should be engaged wholeheartedly and embraced to be able to gather all of the concerns and answer the concerns, and at the end of the day, then we take the battlefield and make a decision as to where we go. But to interrupt the process in the middle, we never get to the end. And so it's not a problem for me to stay where I stand, and that's where I stand, is the environmental impact statement needs to be completed. And it needs to be fully engaged. This government did not participate in the first leg of the process. It wasn't there. It was invisible. Now, that's unacceptable. Now, if we want to go forward and catch up when the draft EIS comes out, then let's get after it. All of the concerns that you see listed everywhere and objections, put it in the record and let the scientists answer the questions to either mitigate it, obliterate it, or whatever they're going to do with it. But all we're doing is roadblocking a process that's going to eventually give us the answer whether it's a good or bad thing. Now, I can't sit here and tell you what it is. I know that the sentiment around here that it's a bad thing, but I think that we have more to lose in the long run if we don't complete the process than we do to gain the process.
I say let the process continue, but it's no harm in stating your position. And that's my position. I agree with everything Mr. Roussel just said. In addition to, I oppose the diversion.
Mr. Cormier?
Yes, and no one here is preventing them from collecting data on the effects on the essential fisheries habitat. No one here is preventing them from collecting data on the east bank of Plaquemines, where we're seeing dead zones, we're seeing toxic algae. So it's disingenuous when CPRA says, "Oh, we just want to construct a permit so we can just study the matter." That's disingenuous. CPRA has awarded contracts already. Now, there is United States Supreme Court case law that's clear. It's undisputed. I sent this to CPRA, Mr. Peterson, about 4 months ago, or thereabouts. And my question was simple. If you have something that says that the NEPA process will safeguard our substantive concerns, please let me know. And I heard crickets for a long period of time. And then finally, it wasn't until a meeting with the blonde-haired attorney, female attorney, I can't recall her name, where she conceded in a meeting. She says, "You're right. NEPA just is a process. It doesn't guarantee safeguard concerns." So when you come back, the reason why this government has to take, if they're going to fast track, that's their prerogative. But we also have to protect our flood protection systems, our levees, and our people. And so that's a fine reading, but it's a worthy reading. of the state of affairs.
Let me just ask you this. I keep hearing this term, hear crickets, like that's supposed to mean silent. When I hear crickets, they make a hell of a lot of noise. So I'm trying to find out what this means, hear crickets.
Silence.
Silence, okay.
Mr. Raggett?
Ken Raggett, 1311 Holiday Place, New Orleans, Louisiana. Aren't y'all supporting the 2014 resolution that was passed?
Yes. Against the large-scale diversions?
Yes.
Yeah, no one on this council has offered legislation to rescind that. So that is our stand at this time.
Okay, I just have one thing here. A little dog and pony. I asked the CPRA several questions at the meetings, on the conversational meetings. One of them was, what is the sediment level of the outlet stream in cubic yards of sediment per unit volume? The answer that they gave me in red is average annual sediment on the order of 150 milligrams per liter. Average annual sand, 20 milligrams per liter, and the fines were 130 milligrams per liter. So the total was 150 milligrams per liter. So I got a liter of water, and I went in my backyard after I went by Sun Petroleum Muds, and I had the man at Sun weigh 160 milligrams of dirt out of my backyard and put it in a 1 liter bottle. So this is this is more than they're saying that's in the river water. Okay, this is 160 milligrams. They said 150. So that's going to kind of give you an idea of what they're going to build all this land with. So there's a little scientific data. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Raggett. Mr. Juneau?
Yes, every time I'm at a meeting with Mr. Bradbury, I ask him, why are they doing this if it's wrong for the people of Plaquemines and also for the people of Louisiana? And he keeps telling me that it's nothing wrong with it, it's going to work. Well, then I listen to Mr. Salvestana, and he says it's not going to work. Well, they're very intelligent people. Why don't we put them at a round table and see if we can straighten all this out? Now, somebody's got to come up with the right answer. They can't be fighting forever. But no one wants to hurt Plaquemines. But the way things are happening, I'm afraid Plaquemines is going to disappear. And that's what they're trying, that's what the federal government is trying to do, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. And they don't want to put us back. They want us to disappear, which I don't want us to disappear. I have relatives and friends down the road. But it looks like that's what they're trying to do, make Plaquemines Parish disappear. Now, that's my opinion. But I think if we sit at a round table and get all them geniuses together, somebody's got to say something. Thank you.
On that note, Mr. Juneau, my stance on this issue is I agree with both Ms. Salvant as well as Mr. Roussel. The process needs to continue, but the project does not need to happen at the expense of our residents and our livelihood. These fishermen and the people that have lived here have seen the process, have seen the effects. That's who needs to be at the round table, the people who've experienced this. That's my opinion on the subject. Any other questions or comments? At this time, we will move to item 6C at the request of Mr. Roussel.
6C. A resolution authorizing Plaquemines Parish Government President Amos Cormier to enter into a cooperative endeavor agreement with West Jefferson Levy District, providing for the conveyance to Plaquemines Parish Government of West Jefferson Levy District's one-half undivided interest in a certain tract of land consisting of approximately 150 acres in Section 44, 45, 74, and 75, Township 15 South, Range 24 East, in Plaquemines Parish, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
I'll offer.
Mr. Russo offers.
And we have changes that have been distributed, and I offer it with those changes, and I think everyone should have a copy. The changes are a result of a lot of work that Mr. L.V. Cooley and Mr. Robert Spears have put into this effort to be able to get the language correct and the acreage correct, to be able to acquire this 702-acre tract that I think will be beneficial to the government in the future. Some of the negotiations that took place was that we were in a position where they were saying, yeah, you take all of the property, you take all of the liability, and we were saying, and we changed it to say, we'll only take liability after we own it, because that's normally what happens when you buy something, you're responsible for it. So we've changed all of that language, and I think that it's time to move forward. If you notice on here, this is also a location where we have the solid waste facility will be moving the collection system in Bellchase off of the sewer plant road location to this location. We've already appropriated the money, the design is done, and they should be moving forward when the engineering department gets in gear. So with that, Mr. Cooley is here to answer any questions that may come up, but this is 700 acres that I think we can kind of balance off. You know that we decided to put the 600 acres of the Woodlands Conservancy into a green holding space. This kind of balances it off, where this allows us to have development in an area that needs development, whereas the Conservancy is in an area where I think should stay green, and I think we all agreed on that. So I want to thank you for your cooperation on that, and ask you to accept this, and let's move forward with the other half of the equation to get property that we can develop.
Any questions or comments from the table? From the audience? Hearing none, the machine is open. Oh, I'm sorry.
Just trying to ask the professor a question with him, because I remember talking about this last week. So you're saying part is going to be for development and part for development? That's what I'm hearing? Because I'm hearing you saying 700 acre.
702 acres off of Walker Road, and if you like a map, I have an extra one here for you.
Okay.
What happens is the development of the project, because of the Peters Road extension, goes right through the middle of the property. Now, if you've been here for a long time, you've heard the port talk about the rear entrance to the base and development outside of the fence line. Well, this is 702 acres outside of the fence line that could match up with any development that would come through that area along the highway, the state highway that goes through the middle of it. Now, I mentioned this area over here because we've already appropriated money to be able to move the solid waste collection center off of Sewer Plant Road, because DHH and DEQ have put a lot of pressure on over the years about the facility not being up to par. So we have a facility that's already designed. The administration is moving forward with the building of this facility. The money's in place, and so that will go on one corner of this property. The rest of it, 140 acres of the 702, has been used for building the levee in the area. So you're down to 450 or so, and that's what we have to develop, plus whatever we do with the other holes. And the great bass fishing, by the way.
Huh?
Great bass fishing in those holes?
I only eat fish, I don't fish.
Well, I'm just helping out.
Any other questions or comments on the item? Hearing none, the machine is open. Legislation passes 6-0.
Thank you.
Let's move to item 6M, please. That's another item Mr. Elvey may need to speak on.
An ordinance authorizing Plaquemines Parish government as grantor to renew and approve an existing 4-inch natural gas pipeline right-of-way agreement with Arrowhead Louisiana Gathering, LLC, as grantee, an affiliate of Hillcore Energy Company, in Harvest Pipeline Company covering parish-owned property located in Section 30, Township 19 South, Range 17 East, South Quarantine Bayfield, Grand Prairie Levee District, Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana, to authorize the parish president to execute the pipeline right-of-way agreement and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Councilmember Bartholomew?
Yes, I offer on the recommendation of the president and LV, our attorney, that we support this.
Mr. Bartholomew offers, is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Juneau. Any questions or comments from the table? From the audience? Hearing none, the machine is open. Legislation passes 5-0. Mr. Black is not present at this time. Let's revert back to the agenda, please, Ms. Parker.
Item number 2, bids and advertisements.
None.
Item number 3, beer and liquor licenses.
Mr. Bartholomew?
None.
Mr. Blackson? Mr. Juneau, your special event permit.
I have one. It's for 8908 Highway 23, Belchester, Louisiana, Our Lady of Perpetual Help Fair, a church parish fair on the, I'm looking for the date, from the 21st, from the 9/21/18 to 9/23/18.
I don't have any. Mr. Roussel?
None.
Ms. Salvant?
I offer.
Mr. Bartholomew offers the special event permit. I'll second. Machine is open. Permit passes 5-0. Is there any objection to taking the construction permits in globo?
None.
Let's take them in globo, please.
4A1, Hellas Oil and Gas Company, LLC, application number 2018-150, dated March 5, 2018. Jet along existing 3-inch pipeline to replace a 20-foot section of pipeline in repair leak, East Black Bay Field, Councilmember Bartholomew. Number 2, the Louisiana Fruit Company, application number 2018-416, dated June 8, 2016. Deposit riprap to reconstruct a failed bulkhead, Venice Port Complex, Site 60, Venice, Councilmember Williams. Number 3, Terracon Consultants, application number 2018-370, dated May 22, 2018. Drill 2 soil borings and push 2 cone penetrometer test for proposed credit union, 8632 Highway 23, Belle Chase, Councilmember Lapine. Number 4, Harvest Pipeline Company, application number 2018-440, dated June 15, 2018. Repair existing BOA-4 pipeline at dig site 105-2, half a mile below South Plaquemines High School, Empire, Councilmember Edgecombe. Number 5, Chevron Pipeline Company, application number 2018-450, dated June 20, 2018. Drill 3 soil borings within the Mississippi River for proposed mooring dolphins and dredging activities. Chevron Empire Terminals, East Bank, Councilmember Bartholomew. Number 6, Chevron Pipeline Company, application number 2018-444, dated June 15, 2018. Dredge and install mooring dolphins, Chevron Empire Terminal, East Bank, Councilmember Bartholomew.
Now,
Yes.
you offer, Mr. Bartholomew. Mr. Bartholomew offers. Ms. Salvant seconds. Is there any questions or comments about the construction permits? Hearing none, the machine is open. Permit passes 5-0. Let's take B, C, and D in globo, please.
B, Mark Marjorie, new commercial boat shed in an A-2 zoning district, 39919 Highway 23, Buras, Louisiana, Councilmember Williams. Malcolm Zanka, new boat shed with second-floor residence in a floodplain zoning district, 387 Martin Lane, Port Sulphur, Louisiana, Councilmember Trufant Salvant. Louis Domino, RV travel trailer in a floodplain zoning district, 126 West Bayou Lane, Lake Hermitage, Louisiana, Councilmember Trufant Salvant.
I'll offer. Seconded by Ms. Salvant. Questions or comments? Hearing none, the machine is open. Permits passes 5-0. At this time, I would like to note the deferrals or withdrawals from the agenda. Item 6A3 will be deferred. Item 6F and G will be deferred. Item 6H will be withdrawn. Items K and L will be deferred. 6N will be deferred. And 7B will be deferred.
Repeat them.
7B, Ms. Audrey's update?
7B would be
Yes,
deferred?
One more time.
7D will be withdrawn.
7D?
And D. And I think we already discussed 7G, correct, Ms. Audrey? Introductions?
I got two.
Yes. 2.
Mr. Badalamy?
Yes, I have an ordinance to amend the 2018 solid waste disposable fund power structure and operating expenditure budget for Solid Waste District 1 Department, and to authorize the emergency exception to the hiring freeze currently enacted on all vacant positions of Plaquemine Parish government and otherwise to provide respect thereto. An ordinance to amend the Plaquemine Parish Code, Plaquemine Parish Government Code of Ordinance at Chapter 22, Appendix B, Section 4, I think it's I-12, I-4, and K and I, thereof, and for all other matters pertaining thereto. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Mr. Black?
Yeah, I have 2. A resolution authorizing Parish President Amos Cormier III to enter into a bulk wastewater agreement with the Sewage and Water Board of New Orleans and the Hero Lands Company, LLC, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. An ordinance approving a plan of re-subdivision of the property of Equiland, Inc., Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana, as shown on the map of re-subdivision property of Equiland, Inc., by Brian Hammett and Associates, certified by Hugh McCurdy III, PLS, dated April 25th, 2018, revised June 18th, 2018. The owner having fulfilled all of the requirements of the subdivision, re-subdivision ordinance of the Parish of Plaquemines without cost to the Plaquemines Parish government or the Parish of Plaquemines, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. That's all.
Mr. Roussel? Mr. Juneau?
Yeah.
Sorry.
An ordinance to appropriate the sum of $20,000 to La Ya to reimburse expenditures by La Ya upon the Public Works Plaquemines Parish Performing and Visual Arts Program project, otherwise known as Building 603, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. An ordinance approving a plan of re-subdivision of property of a portion of plots 24 and 25, Belshaz Plantation, Section D, Parish of Plaquemines, and 2 lots 24A, 24B, and 24C, Belshaz Plantation, Section D, Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana, as shown on the plans and plot of survey by Dufresne Surveying and Engineering Incorporated, dated May 18, 2016, revised August 31st, 2017, the owner having fulfilled all of the requirements of the subdivision and re-subdivision ordinance of the Parish of Plaquemines, without cost to the Plaquemines Parish government or the Parish of Plaquemines, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Thank you.
I have a few. Resolution requesting the Louisiana delegation of the United States House of Representatives and Senate to introduce and support legislation to impose a 10-cent per pound fee on all seafood imported into the United States to be utilized to improve imported seafood safety and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. A resolution to designate the Plaquemines Parish Council Secretary or the designee thereof as the custodian of records for the Plaquemines Parish Council and members thereof, and to provide for related matters. An ordinance authorizing an emergency exception to the hiring freeze currently enacted on all vacant positions of the Plaquemines Parish government and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. An ordinance to declare the millage rate levied upon the dollar of the assessed valuation of all property subject to the ad valorem taxation within Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana for the year 2018 in accordance with Article 7, Section 23C of the 1974 LA Constitution and LA Revised Statute 47.1705B and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. An ordinance authorizing an emergency exception to the hiring freeze currently enacted on all vacant positions of the Plaquemines Parish government and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. An ordinance authorizing acceptance of donations for the Homeland Security Emergency Preparedness Department and to amend the General Fund 2018 operating revenue and expenditure budgets, Homeland Security Emergency Preparedness Department, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Mr. Russell?
Yes, I have an ordinance approving a plan of re-subdivision of property of part of Lot A, Concord Canal Subdivision, Bayou Barataria Section, Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana, into lots A1 and A2. Concord Canal Subdivision, Bayou Barataria Section, Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana, as shown on the plans and plat of survey by Dufresne Surveying and Engineering Incorporated, dated March the 7th, 2016, revised June the 1st, 2018. The owner having fulfilled all of the requirements of the subdivision and re-subdivision ordinance of the Parish of Plaquemines without cost to the Plaquemines Parish Government or the Parish of Plaquemines, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
Yes, I have two. An ordinance to lift the hiring freeze set forth in ordinance number 15-133 on all vacant funded positions and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. An ordinance by the Plaquemines Parish Council as and on behalf of the Beerus Levy District to appropriate new perpetual flood protection levee flood wall easement, new perpetual flood protection levee flood wall and drainage ditch easement, and new temporary work area easement in certain portions of land in Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana, to construct the New Orleans to Venice with West Bank Hurricane Protection Levee Project NOV 10, Happy Jack to Narren, Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana, for levee, flood wall drainage, flood and assess and hurricane protection purposes and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, please.
6A1, an ordinance to prohibit the parking of vehicles on Culvert Road in between Barrier and P Street, to establish a penalty for the violation thereof, to authorize the parish president or his designee to have no parking signs installed, and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Mr. Russell?
I'm going to ask for a second and offer a substitute, which I will defer until the next meeting because we spelled the name wrong in the advertisement, and we don't want any technicalities for somebody trying to get out of a ticket.
I'll second.
And then I'll offer the substitute with the correct spelling of Culvert Road. Give me one. I'll offer as a substitute and ask for a second.
Seconded by Ms. Salvant.
And at this time, I'll defer the item.
Item's been deferred. Next item, please.
6A2, an ordinance approving a plan of re-subdivision of the property described as Tract C and Tract D of Hewitt-Becknell Division, Lower Star Plantation, Section 2, Township 16 South, R24E, into Lot C-1 and D-1 of the Upper and Lower Star Plantation, Section 2, Township 16 South, R24E, by Gilbert, Kelly, and Cochier, Inc., dated January 21st, 2018. The owner having fulfilled the requirements of the subdivision and re-subdivision ordinance of the Parish of Plaquemines without cost of the Plaquemines Parish Government or the Parish of Plaquemines, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
I'll offer on behalf of Councilmember Edgecombe. Can I get a second? Can I get a second? Can I get a second?
I'll second it for the purposes of discussion if that's needed.
Huh? You want to offer a second for discussion?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I don't know what, I guess the fear is that people know what this is about. This is going to be for a Dollar General store in the middle of
Yes.
the neighborhood over there. They still have to go forward with a zoning change, so, I mean,
Well, they would have to still come in front of the council for the
yeah, for the
construction
zoning
permit.
change.
in the zoning change.
Yeah, unless they got some, Mitra can explain it.
That's my understanding from Mr. Edgecombe. This is just, this will not approve the Dollar General being placed there. This is just for the property, and they would have to come back in front of the council, correct?
That is correct. It is a, yes, sir.
Yes.
This is just a division of the land. They can either two ways seek approval for the Dollar General. One as getting council approval for commercial use in the A2, or to do a map change to make the A2 a C2, but either way, the council has final say in the development. And I have Mr. Voltalina here, just in case you all would have had any questions. He's here to answer any questions or concerns you may have.
Mr. Mitra?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I'm not objecting to the legislation, but my concern would be, we are not putting the cart before the horse. Shouldn't we approve?
No, ma'am, you have to have the division of the lots to make it its own parcel prior to getting the development.
This is just dividing the
done.
lots, and the development will be on one of the lots.
It will be on the front, the very front small lot.
Yeah, but my concern is any objection from the neighbors would not come until you go before the zoning board, right?
Yes, ma'am. No, yes, ma'am. Either it would go either way. If they petition to do the A2 use in the C2 and the A2, the neighbors will get the notification 15 days prior before the council meeting. And that will give them the ability or the opportunity to come to you all and speak or oppose. Or if they petition to do the map change, the next hearing will not be till September, and then they will get the notifications again 15 days prior to the public hearing for the development board. Then it will get sent to you all, the council, and then it will be up for vote after a layover.
Okay,
But
I'm
either
just
way,
trying to be a voice for...
yes, ma'am.
for the
Either
folks
way,
that's
they
not
will
here.
have the opportunity to speak for or against.
All right, thank
You
you.
want to come up, sir? State your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. My name is Ed Voltalina. I'm representing Dorsey Development Company's address 3636 North Causeway Boulevard in Metairie, Louisiana. I'm just here if y'all have any questions regarding re-subdivision or anything else.
Okay, I guess the question is, how are you going to proceed?
Sir?
If this subdivision is approved today, how will you proceed?
At that point, we'll finish getting together everything to do our permitting process, then we'll go and apply, at which point, my understanding is at that point, then we would have to ask, to come to the council to ask if we can put the C2 use in the A2, and at that point, then you all would have an opportunity to vote on that, and along with the public input, and then, you know, if you all say yes, we'll proceed. If you say no, then we can't. So, but that was told this is the procedural way we have to go with it.
She outlined two procedures. Which way would you proceed?
We'll probably go with the request to do the C2 in the A1, in the agricultural district, because of time more than anything.
And you don't see any issues about spot zoning or anything like that? Because we had an issue down the street from here that was denied recently.
Well, sir, I mean, I know there's some commercial around there, so I didn't really see it as a spot zoning, but, you know, I guess that's why we'd have discussions, and we're willing to sit down with the neighbors if they have concerns and so forth and discuss everything with them also. We have no objections to doing anything with that.
I think at this time I'm going to withdraw my second and let Mr. Edgecombe handle it, because it's his district, really, and he should be here, I think, to promote this. So at this time,
You're going to withdraw?
I'm going to withdraw my second.
Okay, we'll defer the item,
Yeah, I would think that'd be the best.
and it'll be taken up at the next meeting when Mr. Edgecombe is present.
Okay, can you give me the date on that, please?
July the 12th.
July 12th. All right.
It'll be in Belchase on F. Edward A. Bear.
All right, thank you.
Next item.
6B, an ordinance to amend the 2018 Manpower Structure Economic Development Department and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
I'm going to offer with substitution that I passed out earlier.
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. by Mr. Roussel. You want to read the preamble, and then I'll explain the substitution?
The new preamble is an ordinance to amend the 2018 Library Services Fund manpower structure and operating expenditure budget, Libraries General Department, to amend the 2018 General Fund manpower structure and operating expenditure budget, Economic Development Department, and to authorize an emergency exception to the hiring freeze currently enacted on all vacant positions of Plaquemines Parish government and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Okay, the substitute, what this is doing is unfunding the curator position in economic development and adding one full-time clerk to the library department. And it's lifting the exception to the hiring freeze for the clerk in the library department. And it's going to move $15,070 from the library fund, Libraries General Department, to the Library Services Fund, unreserved, undesignated. The reason being is the Fort Jackson Museum, as y'all know, has been closed for some time now. The curator position has been advertised twice, and there have been no qualified applicants. People have applied, but no one has qualified. So I thought moving it to a clerk position would enable someone to qualify for that position, and so we can get the museum open. And we're also going to put it, since there is no economic development department, that's where the curator position was listed in the budget, we're going to move it under the libraries department. Any questions or comments from the table? Yes? Oh. Audience? Hearing none, the machine is open. Legislation passes 6-0. Mr. Cormier, I would appreciate it if you would get with Ms. Ellen and ask her to advertise this ASAP. Thank you.
Excuse me.
Next item.
Yeah, good luck.
6D.
All you do is try.
An ordinance to require backflow prevention systems for all bona fide commercial properties open to public accommodation and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
I'll offer.
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Juneau. Mr. Morgan, can you come up and explain the reason we're needing this legislation, please?
This is part of the DHH regulations. It should have been met. Shane, myself, Reverend Giles, Mr. Amos, we went over it. It's an ongoing issue. It's a part of our sanitary survey. I'm pretty sure all of y'all receive notice of violations for it, and this is to address that violation.
And this is for all commercial properties,
Not all.
or are some excluded?
Yes, ma'am. Some are excluded. It depends on the plumbing code. The parish has to, it's actually adopting the code that the parish should have had on the records. Mike Metcalf, I don't see him here right now, but he's, it's a part of the plumbing code, so.
And so y'all are working with the permit department and everyone in conjunction to notify the ones that will need to have these backflow preventers installed?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the table? Mr. Roussel?
Yes, there is a policy on the books that that department has to have an appearance here. He's not here. I would ask that the administration direct him to be here, because if he's part of this discussion and he's not here, we have a problem. So, back to this issue. The last time y'all sent out letters, you have identified now pretty much who needs backflow preventers, and do you have a typical number about what that might be?
Yes, sir. We actually have a number where some people did not respond to the letter at all. The enforcement is going to be the other issue of this. This policy, you really are just adopting it right now. Then the parish is going to have to enforce it, which is that brings the permit department back into play. The permit department and the water department, Mr. Giles, Reverend Giles' department, Angie Bartholomew, they got to communicate. When you apply for a business in Plaquemines Parish, if you have a barber shop or a paint shop or agriculture, all of that's got to be tied into each other.
So the permit department is going to have to put some additional information and request on a form for like a permit? Permit form has to be revised?
Yeah, well, when they apply for the permit, that business, they know what type of business they're applying for right then. They tell the permit department, and they should communicate then. That's
what I'm saying. When an applicant walks in the office, he should be able to fill out the application.
That's right.
And if the application today doesn't include this, then the application needs to be modified to include the information that's going to be requested of him on that, so the permit department needs to be plugged in?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Lawrence? That right there,
Warren
because it might be
Lawrence,
for you.
120 Timber Canal Lane, Myrtle Grove, and I just make a comment as being the past chief plumbing inspector for the city of New Orleans at one time. We initiated this backflow prevention requirements that this parish never did do. But I do have some questions in the way this is written up, because the backflow preventions are not required just on commercial properties open to public accommodations. It doesn't matter if it's a commercial property that's not open to public accommodations. Backflow prevention is required. There's a separate requirement that the installer be certified by the Department of Health for the state of Louisiana, and there's a separate application to be filed. I don't know what the ordinance looks like, so I really can't comment completely, but I can on what I read here. And when you say bona fide commercial properties, I don't know what that means, because the requirement is not just on commercial properties. You have backflow requirements in a home that is required when you file your permit. It's either what they call an air gap, which you see on your kitchen sink, or it may be if you have something in your house as a swimming pool. You're not a commercial property, but you're required to have a backflow preventer on it. And that's filed with your application for permit. So, you know, I hate to get into this, but the wording of this, you know, tends me to ask a lot of questions on what I was involved in. It's 19 years ago, and my memory ain't that good, but, and I don't know what has changed in the process since then. But this all falls under the State Board of Health, the backflow prevention requirements. And there's a table that lists, if you have a barber shop, what kind of requirements you're going to have, whether it be a double check assembly or reduced pressure backflow preventer. If you're a farm, what do you have to have on your, and it's not generalized that a hospital is different than a mortuary, but every one of them has to file, and it has to be a separate permit filed for that backflow prevention device installed by a backflow preventer, and you must have a program that some are tested on an annual basis, or used to be. I don't know if they're still on an annual basis, but those are all the requirements that should be in your backflow ordinance. So I just want to make comment. My questions was on whether it's truly bona fide commercial or public accommodations. I don't think that falls into that.
Mr. Russo?
So let me ask this, Mr. Morgan, this ordinance was drafted by who?
Mr. Landry is who I received it from. Mr. Landry?
Yes.
Shane Landry? Well, that's our legal counsel, so, you know, if half of what Mr. Says is correct, this doesn't cover it.
I know. And maybe the ordinance is a lot
it's not.
different than this, what I'm reading.
No, it's not.
I don't know.
So I would think is that the legal staff needs to get an ordinance together to just say that, you know, we're adopting a policy to comply with DHH rules and regulations as whatever they are, and you can cite a few of them and go from there, because the interpretation of this is going to be just what Mr. Lawrence said.
I know Shane was working with our son and mother parishes policy. I don't know if he used it or not. I haven't seen the full.
Well, let me read it to you so it cleared up. It's in order to require backflow prevention systems for all bona fide commercial properties open to public accommodation. Then it goes down and it has 3 paragraphs. For purposes of this ordinance, a bona fide commercial property shall be defined as a property used primarily for the generation of income, the production of goods, to sell to the public, or the provision of services. B, for purposes of this ordinance, public accommodation shall mean that the commercial property is open to the public and that goods and services are provided to walk-in clients or the public at large. And third, this ordinance shall not apply to farmhouses or other such residents situated on agricultural property or to home-based business primarily engaged in electronic or postal commerce. So I don't know why we would put something in here that excludes anything. You know, it opens up a door for us for problems. I think we ought to cite the rules of the state law and whatever we got to comply with, and let's move forward. So
Since Mr. Landry isn't here and he's the one that drafted this, I'm going to defer this item, and when he comes back from vacation, we can get with him to try to get clarification on his intentions and where this came from.
But my comment would be,
Mr. Morgan, are we on a timeline here, or? Yeah?
When I spoken to, I think you had 60 days to reply. 60 days to reply to him and say that you met the standard. And that's what Shane was working on. I haven't, when we sat in the meeting together, I know he was working on it. That's all I remember him working on it. And we was going to actually send it to DHH and get their approval. But I don't know if we did that yet.
I don't know either, because I introduced it in the last meeting in May, and it was deferred at the previous meeting on the 14th because I wasn't here.
Right.
So it's been completed for about a month.
Right. But y'all have to adopt.
Now, whether Shane submitted it to DHH or not, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Mr. Cormier?
I'm not sure if Shane submitted it, but out of an abundance of caution, I'd like to present two options. Either one, pass it, we vote on it, we can amend it later, or two, change that language now to just comply with
Plumbing codes, yeah.
DHH regulation. The language you suggested, Councilman Russo.
so why don't the legal staff give us, draft up some language, and we'll pass over this and
We'll
come back.
pass over this, Mr., would you work on it, Mr. Cormier? And, okay. Okay. We'll pass over, we'll come back to this item.
Just
Yes.
pass over.
Item 6E is going to be deferred, I'm sorry, that's Mr. Bird's.
Which one?
6E, that's the next item, I failed to mention that one.
6I, an ordinance to amend the five-year capital improvements plan by appropriating $2,745,751 to the Plaquemines Housing Assistance Program from Community Development Block Grant and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
Ms. Salvant?
actually, this is just some additional money that, oh, I'm offering, I'm sorry.
Second.
I do offer.
Ms. Salvant offers, and Mr. Bartholomew seconds.
This is actually some CDBG money, additional funding that was granted to the parish to aid in elevation and continuing the elevation program throughout the parish. But in light, before we, it's basically just as read. But that was an email that I want to elaborate on that I received from the DA office in regards to this, to this legislation. He had concerns about the CDBG money, and he wanted to make sure and like to instruct me to not to even address any CDBG money or spend any CDBG money that possibly would be, that was allocated to the DA building, to the renovation of the DA building. Well, in light of his request, I contacted Ms. Hilda Lott, and this is her brief response, because, you know, I'm up to the point where I don't know why Mr. Valet feels that he needs to monitor our budget so closely. But she says, Ms. Audrey, in answer to your question you posed today in our telephone conversation, the ordinance that I've asked you to sponsor is HUD CDBG funds that the state has added to the PAP program. It is coming directly from the Office of Community Development / Louisiana Housing Corps, and is not tied to or being moved from any other CDBG or LRA funds currently held by the parish. It is not coming from the unallocated CDBG funds, former DA building. Should you require further clarification, please do not hesitate to call. Well, I don't see a need to call Mr. Valet, But I just wanted to clarify that on record. This is money for continual elevation. So I hope that clears up the matter for Mr. Bally. Thank you.
Any questions or comments from the table? From the audience? Hearing none, the machine is open. Legislation passes 5-0 with an abstention from Councilmember Black. Next item.
J, an ordinance to amend the 5-year capital improvements plan, upgrade Ironton Park project, and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Ms. Salvant? Ms. Salvant, office, is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Russo. Ms.
Okay.
Salvant?
This legislation is self-explanatory. It's just to improve the situation down at the Ironton Park with the concession stand. There's a need for some utilities, some additional components inside the concession stand, like stove and air conditioning and different things of that matter. If you notice, in the last couple of times I've came to you guys to consolidate some of my line items within my budget, whereas I can replace a lot of items that was destroyed at Ironton Park as a result of Hurricane Katrina. I'm nowhere near of replicating what I had there. So I'm just, what I'm doing with this legislation here is moving a lot of moving some budget line items to consolidate toward what's going to be needed to upgrade the park. So I ask for your support.
So just so the public can know, this is taking $1,820 out of your District 7 general fund.
Yes.
To be allocated to the Ironton Park
Yes.
project. Any questions or comments from the table? Audience?
I just want to comment, Councilwoman DeSalvo, you know, every time I go, I was just there the other day for a funeral, and even from the highway, it adds something to Ironton. You know, people they know when they come to Ironton, and I had other people talk to me, so I just want to congratulate you in terms of how beautiful the park look as you enter Ironton. I just say over the years, it's a great improvement, something welcome, not just by me, but other people who say, man, you know, in Ironton, that park get my attention now, so congratulations on your work you're doing there.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any other comments? Hearing none, the machine is open. Legislation passes 6-0. Next item.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
6-0, an ordinance authorizing the acceptance of a donation for the Parish Council Department to amend the General Fund 2018 operating expenditure, revenue and expenditure budgets, Parish Council General Department, and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Black offers our second.
As read.
Offers as read. This is a donation from the Police Jury Association of Louisiana in the amount of $2,500. This is our year to host the annual event for the Police Jury Association, and each year $2,500 is allocated to the hosting parish. Questions or comments from the table? Audience? Hearing none, the machine is open.
Sleeping over
I'm not done. Legislation passes 6-0. Next item.
P, a resolution to authorize the council special counsel to take such actions that are necessary to conclude the matter of Plaquemines Parish Council versus Plaquemines Parish President Amos Comey III, docket number 64047, Division A, 25th Judicial District Court, Parish of Plaquemines, State of Louisiana, and to provide for related matters.
Councilmember Black.
Offer.
Councilmember Black offers. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Councilmember Russo.
I'd like to, honestly, Mr. President, not have to vote on this. I would like to come to an agreement and settle this matter. I think the judge in Division A has asked both councils to get together and try to work out some type of terms. I think we've bent over backwards to try to accommodate the administration to help with that move. I mean, you know the history of it. The council passed a resolution having you move to Building 100, probably nearly a year ago, maybe more. We had to file a mandamus. 25th JDC pretty much gave us that authority before the circuit agreed. You guys filed a writ at the Supreme Court. They denied to hear it, so it went back to the 25th. So, I mean, I think the legal issues are pretty much run through its course. I mean, I think we've all agreed that the council has that authority, and it's the council's wishes for you to relocate to Building 100. I know Mr. Barbay had mentioned in the paper that he had lack of resources and lack of manpower, but it'd be too big of a move. We had some discussions. I think that's contradictory, that statement, because if you have a lack of manpower, then you probably don't have a lot of people to move. So I'm not sure if that's correct, Mr. Barbay, or not, but I would like to just try to get this thing settled here, where we don't have to vote on this thing, to have Mr. Garrett go back to court and file anything else against this administration. I mean, all the council's asking is for the administration to move.
After discussion with council, thank you, and we'll work on it.
Yeah, I tell you what, I mean, if you guys can come up, this would be my ask, to come up with, within the next 2 weeks, some type of timeline and a move plan. I think Mr. Burt used to do this for a living, and he mentioned to you guys that y'all could get this accomplished within a weekend. And I think the IT stuff's already set up there. You already have furniture set up there. I don't think it's a really a big move. I think it'll take a couple days, and I'll even volunteer to come help you. I think Director Giles is getting my old office, so I'm familiar with it. But if you guys can come up with a move plan for us in the next 2 weeks and some timeline, I'll defer this until then. And then if we don't have anything by then, we'll go to a vote. Is that fine?
And thank you, Councilman Black, and we will work on it, and I look forward to getting together with you again. I will say, though, at the meeting that I discussed earlier with all the parish presidents, the Jefferson Parish president's on the 7th floor. The mayor of Orleans Parish is on the 7th, 8th floor. All our neighboring parishes, even St. Bernard's on the 2nd floor. And President McGinnis told me that they're looking to buy another building to where they can go up higher. The biggest risk here in Plaquemine is where coastal parish is flooding. And so naturally, the concern has been from day one, not to be thick-headed or not to be hard-headed, simply out of concern for emergency type scenarios to be by emergency operator. But we will get with you.
And I just want to answer that question. I really don't want to be condescending, but I think if you are operating on the 2nd floor of the Popich building, because that's the only place you can operate because everything else is flooded, I think we have a little bit bigger problems than having you operate on the 2nd floor. So that would mean that the entire Bell Chase was flooded about 12 to 15 foot. So I doubt you'd be there. Anyway, all right, I'll defer it, and then hopefully we can get together with Mr. Barbay or whoever else, Dr. Giles. Thanks.
Item's been deferred. Have y'all came up with a resolution for 6D?
I actually called Shane.
Can you use your microphone? They said use.
Sure. I spoke with Mr. Landry about this, and he said what he had done is he copied the Jefferson Parish policy, which had been approved by DHH. There have been several meetings. He'd been very careful to try to limit it as much as possible to whatever was the bare minimum was needed. My only other suggestion would be, if you were worried about it, if you even said, as required by the Louisiana 2012 Plumbing Code, that would be the catch-all, because that includes all of the state law, guidance, regulations, ordinances, et cetera, on backflow preventers. So if you're concerned about it, that would surely pass or muster, because it's the state's own rules. So we could amend it just to add a D, as required, or as required by the Louisiana 2012 Plumbing Code.
Okay. Thank you for that recommendation.
That would be the easy answer. If you, I did say one thing to him, and that was whether or not this was a time crunch, and he said yes, because that we were under orders to get it done. So that's why they were working, trying to get it done.
Okay, let's revert back to item 6D, and I'll offer it with changes.
An ordinance to require backflow prevention systems for all bona fide commercial properties open to public accommodation and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Okay, I'd like to offer with the following changes. After the word properties in the preamble, insert as required by the Louisiana 2012 Plumbing Code, comma, open to public accommodation, at the request of our legal department. With those changes, I offer. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Bartholomew. Any questions or comments from the table? From the audience? Hearing none, the machine is open. Legislation passes 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 7A, introductions of resolutions wherein suspension is being sought. There are none.
Mr. Bartholomew, I'm sorry. Mr. Bartholomew would like to seek a suspension. Do you have that, Ms. Barber?
A resolution to appoint and replace a representative for District 1 to the Plaquemines Parish Zoning and Planning Development Board and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Mr. Bartholomew?
Yes.
I'd like to offer a suspension, to suspend the rules to vote on this legislation. He offers, and I'll second for the suspension.
The gentleman that was serving has never shown up at a meeting.
We got to vote to suspend the rules first.
Yeah, I'm just saying what it's for. Why are we doing it?
Okay.
I do it to see you. Yeah.
The request to suspend the rules is granted 6-0. Ms. Barber, can you now read it?
A resolution to appoint and replace a representative for District 1 to the Plaquemines Parish Zoning and Planning Development Board and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Mr. Bartholomew?
Yes, I offer.
Bartholomew
As
offers.
written, I gave it, passed everybody a copy of it out to you. And Joe Frederick is the
I'll
one that-
second.
Ma'am?
I'll second.
I know you second. I'm just saying the person we replace, Mr. Joe Frederick, going to be the new member of the board. He's placing Antonio Alfonso. He'll be replacing Antonio Alfonso.
Any questions or comments from the table? From the audience? Hearing none, the machine is open. Legislation passes 6-0.
Thank you.
You're welcome. 7C,
7C, District 1 update.
Mr. Bartholomew?
Welcome to the county seat. I hope y'all had a chance to go see your courthouse.
I did.
The governmental complex in our district. There will be a significant icon and a historical building for Plaquemines Parish, because this is the government seat. And the buildings, all the panels are up, the cement panels are up. Now just waiting to finish closing in with the metal panels. They done put the plywood in posture. and also the glass panels on the front section which faces the store. That's where the glass going to go. And we had a problem earlier during the week, last week, Friday. No, that was this week. The fire marshal was needed to come in and inspect some of the infrastructure that was put up in the building, and he never had shown up. So through Representative Leopold assistance and Senator Carter, we were able to encourage the state fire marshal to send the guy down the next day to inspect those areas that need to be inspected so they can continue to move forward. So it was done expeditiously. So again, I want to thank Mr. Carter and Mr. Leopold for making sure that fire marshal came down that day to do what they needed to do. It didn't slow up the process at all. So we're back on status, and we look like we might be there before December. So, and I'm hoping that the ferry, the bridge, the ramp on the ferry will be done by that time. So we're waiting on engineering to get all that in place, because everything else is in place now, ready to be developed. So we're hoping that can get started very soon. And I don't know, Mr. President, you may need to look into the land where the existing ramps are, whether or not we own them. And if we don't, I think we need to locate property where we do own, especially we own in front of the courthouse, and we own by the water plant at West Point Lahash. We own that area as well as being parish-owned property. So if it's on private-owned land, so we need to consider moving that and looking at that, rather than building the new ramps on somebody else's property, build it on parish-owned property.
Mr. Councilman, is that on the downriver side or the upriver side?
I want to check on both sides, I don't know, on east and west side. Now, it was my understanding, someone said that the west side doesn't belong to us, but no one said they didn't know anything about the east side. Now, I know where some of the property on the east side is Labrano, and they used to call it, man, was a Brasi that had owned that. So, but I don't know who, if they had donated that piece of that levee front of that property for a ramp or not. So we need to check that out. And we want to pay any rent like we do in Belchase.
That's it, Mr. Bartolome? That's your update? You're done?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I'm fine. I just... 7E, please.
District 2 update, Councilmember Black.
Mr. Black?
I'll yield to
He's
Mr.
also
Bartolome.
instrumental in in helping us get this stuff done
Thank
as
you.
well. So I want to just let y'all know that, even though he's from the West District 2, where everything at, he still help us on the southern end. Huh?
What'd you say?
About the
Said I was instrumental.
Land.
Instrumental.
Help us get the land, get the money.
You said Mr. Black was instrumental in doing what?
Help us get the money. he said.
Oh,
Now, and I just get the budget, make a recommendation to the administration to go find land so we can put the ferry landings on both sides of the river before we have to close them down and we stop operations when the courthouse opens. So,
so there's still hope.
always hope. All right, my turn?
Yeah, it's,
All right, just a couple things in District 2. I had a conversation from PAWS. They were complaining again about the air filters. I'd like to try to get together with you, Director Giles, and legal, and folks from PAWS and maybe the health department, and kind of find out what's the protocol, because I'm not sure if they should be changing those things or maintenance, but I know you guys are well overworked, and you probably don't have time to get to those small type of filter change items as often as you'd like to. So if we can probably get together, and if we have to fund, that budget more to get outsourcing for that particular facility, then we figure something out. I don't know, but I'd like to get together within the next couple weeks. The other thing too, I think was sitting on Shane's desk, Peter. We're looking to do an agreement with the school board. We have a piece of property behind PAWS. It's around 10 acres of land. We wanted to cut out about 5 acres. The school board was looking to use it for parking for the new expansion of the primary school. With that, they would pave it, then give us access to it for parking for recreational events, for paws, for other things. So it's basically, it's a win-win. It'll provide us additional parking for recreation and other events that we have off of FLA Bear, as well as providing them with parking for school. So getting that CEA done. The third thing is, as the President mentioned before, we attended a meeting with RPC last either Monday or Tuesday, I forgot, but RPC is going to have a town hall type of meeting on Tuesday, July 10th at the Belchase Auditorium from 5 to 8. Representatives from DOTD will be there as well. I'm sure the council members as well as the administration will be there. We asked a lot of questions to them and are hoping to get answers back prior to the meeting. But there was some eye-opening things that we saw. So hopefully we'll have some good discussion on Tuesday the 10th. That's all I have. Thanks.
Madam Chair, take a little privilege. I want to thank everybody who was trying to help with this crisis with the boat situation. Appreciate everything the boat is running, and I appreciate all the council members' support on getting finances in order so we can put this thing into operation. And the people you utilize that, I want to thank you, the council, very much for the assistance in getting this done, because it brought the opportunity for them to go back to work, a lot of people, and it also saved the employees with the sheriff department a whole lot of money. Started making that big old loop all the way around and go all the way back. And I was surprised. I thought you was going to catch the boat today yourself, as being very instrumental in supporting, and to see how easy it would be to come across on the east side with the boat. And anyway, but I want to thank all of y'all for y'all support on that project.
Thank you. Item 6F is going to be withdrawn, so we'll be moving on to item 8.
Discussion by Grand Bayou Indian Village Tribe.
8.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We did that already.
Approval of minutes from June 4, 2018 meeting.
Offer.
Offered by Mr. Bartholomew, seconded by Mr. Black. Approval of the minutes. Machine is open. Vote again, please.
Something wrong today. Somebody in there killed you.
Minutes are approved 6-0. Is there a motion to adjourn? Mr. Bartholomew offers a motion to adjourn, seconded by Mr. Black. Machine is open. The meeting is adjourned at 3:24 p.m.